All right, it's official. We've decided to do an emergency podcast. We're making it happen. We're riffing as we're going, but we felt like we needed to put something out there into the world to support everyone right this time. Now, I remember listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I think they chopped someone in, they flew him in, they got him there, they got him in person. We haven't quite got the helicopter in for Mr. Matt Omo, but we've sent him down next to his gong in his hut. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, good. I've got the gong hanging over my shoulder. I've got a stick of Palo Santo just to smoke it if I get really stressed out. Away we go.
I know. I think I kicked off the podcast in a bad way because I've spent the last 3.5 hours trying to get Ava to sleep. And I've been pacing the streets. I got rained on. She wouldn't go down. So I carried her in the rain and she was loving it. And then she was kicking me. And then I finally thought I was getting her down. And then she kicked off again. So I've done zero preparation. I've palmed her off to my wife, Linda. They're out of the house. So we're like, let's roll. So what are we talking about?
That's it. We're really walking the talk, aren't we? Um, yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's important. I mean, we just sat here for the last 5 minutes, and we've got we said let's talk about 5 things that we do to keep balance and harmony in this stressful time, in this chaotic time, and well, we've got a list of 13 things here
So far.
so
And I
far.
reckon we could double it. So have you got the next 3 hours, people, whatever you're listening to in this? Let's.
That's it. Let's just
so
do a whole series.
so in no particular order, we were just riffing ideas, and we just thought let's just start talking about them because I'm sure it will unearth some gold and hopefully inspire you listening to this, help you, and obviously there's so many things we could be covering and what we do. This is just us. This is just what we are kind of on the forefront of our minds because, like it or not, we're all in this soup right now that's happening right around the world of chaos, and yeah. So let's crack on, should we?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, just as you're talking, I'm just feeling stuff coming up, and I think that feeling is probably a good place to start because there's a lot of well, I've just observed within myself, especially a lot of emotional stuff coming up. I think I've hit the gamut of different emotions over the last 2 months, highs and lows, and ups and downs, and reactiveness, and so forth and so on, and um, I think for me, if I don't have a way, an outlet for the emotion to move, to express itself, then it just compounds things, and it's like then I can't really think straight. I feel compressed in my body. I'm not making the right decisions. I'm reacting to people and things out of out of context, and it's just everything just blows up. So it's like first and foremost for me is finding outlets for expression. And I mean, look, that's what I do for a career, right? It's no accident that I make noise for a living.
This is true.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, and for me, that is an expression. That is the way to get emotions out, and that actually the sounds of vibrations then create um, a momentum, a vibration within me that then creates an opening, and it starts to release because it's the contraction down. And I think, especially now, like this is what happens is that we get into this fear response. We get into a place where the stress hits us, and the initial reaction of fear, if you just sit with like how does my body receive fear, and 90% of the times when I ask people that, they say there's a contraction. There's a contraction in me.
Mm.
There's a closing down. There's a clamping. There's a holding, and that is already causing more stress because life in essence just wants to flow. It wants to move. It's a vibration. And you've got so many people on your podcast that talk to this concept that there's this movement, there's this flow, there's this frequencies and vibrations and everything that's moving through us. I mean, look at our breath. It's breathing. You try and hold your breath and you're going to create some stress in yourself, right? So the same thing is true when we get into fear, is that collapsing down, that contraction that happens is basically anti-evolution. It's against the flow of evolution. And so it's like, allowing that to reveal itself. And
But use the rabbit hole because you said no. Let's just touch on each one, but you've just blown it wide open. And we
Wait,
probably
you
end up
get me
talking about
going.
this one. But
Okay, stop. I'll stop there.
no, no. But the thing is, right, which is of course spot on. But the reality is, and Ava's my greatest teacher. I always say this right now because I watch her express her emotions constantly, you know,
100%. Yeah.
and I'm the last one to squash them. I just let her go, you know, and she works it through, and then she comes out the other side. Next thing you know, she's smiling again. You know what I mean? If we just leave her go through that, and I think, wow, what happens if we all did that as adults? Can you imagine what it'd be like walking around as opposed to? But wouldn't it be fair to say though, like what we've seen now with so many people and even on my own journey, that we are really good at suppressing the emotions, but once we suppress them, we're not even aware they're suppressed because we are so disconnected from ourselves and from our bodies and from its innate wisdom. We're not even aware in the first place that we're actually suppressing the emotions. And it's like shaking a Pepsi can, and you just continually shaking, it's bubbling, 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 and it feels like the world has come along and just like popped the cork for you at the moment, and everything's coming up. So it's like, then what do we do? Because right now that is now my reality, because I am seeing through the lens of these suppressed emotions that I've never dealt with my entire life, and I am getting a mirror held up into my face, and it's like, hey, you got to start looking, and it's painful as buggery.
Well, especially when you're running into other shooken cans that are spewing all over everything, right?
Totally, you know.
Right.
So
So,
we're having a perceived, so every single individual human being is seeing the situation from a different lens point, including ourselves right now, based upon our life and our past experiences and our innate wisdom, or lack of wisdom, depending on where we're at, to be there. I mean, the thing is, we got the gift of age as well. Not that I'm, you know, you looking at me, you'd think, God, you're 22, guy. But you know, yes, I'm late 40s, but but the point is, like, there's a lot of life has allowed us to have wisdom as well, and experiences that haven't come up for a lot of people that are living through these times or traumas for the first time as well.
yeah,
You know.
100%. Oh, well, and I think the work that we do as well, we not only do we work our process and heal the past experiences that we've had, the traumatic things that were unresolved, and it's like, like you say, that takes the pressure out of that shooken Pepsi can or Coke can, whatever. And over time we've practiced it, but we also get to witness people through the retreats, through the workshops, through the online stuff that we do, to witness their release for their trauma, and then how that impacts their relationships and their lives and their ability to make more inspired choices and actions. It's incredible.
Mhm.
So the practices, then, how do we do that? That's where we lean into our list, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if we're going to get to all these points, but let's
Yeah.
lead on to what's the next logical point from becoming aware of our emotions in the first place. I think that's how we started it. Was it becoming aware of the emotions?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, well, then it's the expression of them, I think. So if you have an awareness of it, it's one thing to have that awareness. Where am I contracting down? Where am I holding? What needs to be expressed? What is that emotion? And then, that's where the meditation comes in, isn't it? It's a mindfulness practice. It's a pausing. It's hitting a stop button on that perpetual thought, that perpetual um, reactiveness, or whatever is there within you, mental stuff, emotional stuff, even the physical stuff. That's what you're sitting in. And then, as you get more versed on this, it's the energetic stuff,
Mm.
the spiritual, if you will. And that you start, oh, look out, there's that word. But it's building that relationship, because we have a really strong relationship with our bodies to an extent. We numb them down, but we know that we're in our body, and we identify with that, and we identify with our emotions, and more so our thoughts in our society. So body and thoughts are pretty present, but spirit we don't really identify with, but it's a huge part of who we are. And so building that relationship helps to build the awareness to it. And so those four components, the body, the mind, the emotion, and the spirit, when we start to sit in meditation on a daily basis, at least, maybe 2 3 times a day in a time like this,
Mm.
to just pause and take inventory and say, well, where am I holding? Where is there an imbalance? And that awareness is 95% of it. Then, oh, I'm holding emotion that I'm not dealing with. I'm there's these thoughts that are perpetuating this upheaval, this unsettledness, this stress. There's a tension in my shoulder and my neck from working on the computer or watching all the videos. That my vision's going. All these physical things that are out of balance that we don't attend to, that will then snowball. I think you talk about this. It's like this is critical. Is that if we don't pay attention, it's the feather that. What is you're saying? The
Oh,
feather
I
and the.
heard it from Kerwin Way. It's the
Oh yeah,
feather, the brick, or the Mack truck.
yeah,
Like we we live our lives a certain way, and quite often when we maybe have a little bit of stillness or there's something, if we're not busily distracting ourselves and staying in the stress response, that we end up like feeling a feather tickling on our cheek. It's almost like there's a message. There's some intuitive knowing that, hey, maybe I should be looking over here. Maybe something in my life is not quite right now. And but we quite often, because it's only a feather and nothing driving hard, we continue to ignore that, right? And we go,
yeah, yeah,
it's just far bit off because we got all our conditioning, our beliefs, our culture, everything, our upbringing is all intertwined, and we bloody forget who we really are. And then, of course, a little bit later, we start getting rocks chucked at our head, and reality starts to get harder for us. And it's like, hey, are you listening? Are you looking over you? What is your soul's expression wanting to come through? Or are you continue to ignore that too? And it's normally fear, and we're living from that place that we suppress that too. And of course, a Mack truck will come along and plow you right over one day to say, "Now you're listening now," which
mm,
is a scary thing. And I know we've had a few Mack trucks in our own lives along the way, right? And it
yeah,
makes us pay attention, and it starts to make us look and see and look inward, and start to reveal aspects of ourselves we never even knew were there in the first place. But if it wasn't for I guess the pressure of the outside external world forcing us to start to look within, then we wouldn't have revealed that diamond that was buried under the whole amount of coal in the first place. And from that, we can see a new aspect of ourselves that was never there before, or was always there, but we just didn't know it was there. And then we start to live life from that vantage point, and we get a new perspective and a new meaning, and we start to see things through the different lens to the one that we were seeing it through. So it's really important, and I feel that we are encouraged to suppress those in society, in Western society in general. To be honest with you, and
absolutely.
goes from there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I feel that a regular practice is critical. Is because in that regular practice, then I start to build a sensitivity and awareness to the subtleties.
Mm.
And when I can manage the subtleties, I don't get hit by a Mack truck as frequently. You know, so
Exactly,
I'll
because
just
I
I'll
think
blow the feathers.
yeah, but
Funny.
we forget like, because we're so automated, our life is so regimented. Quite often we forget that we are greater than our thoughts. We forget we are greater than our emotions. We are not necessarily them. And I always see ourselves now as we are like, um, we've got this mammal, this meat suit that we get to jump in and grace the earth, hopefully for 80 to 100 years, and have this experience called life. But there's an element that's beyond that of us, and it's like building that relationship to that larger aspect of ourselves, and being able to rise above and see from a different vantage point, and our emotions and our feelings and our thoughts, and even to an extent our unconscious actions. And we're able to work with this amazing, incredible mammal and start to help retrain it and recondition it to work to support you long term, as opposed to it just being like this wild animal that's never been trained to support in some aspects our entire life. And as we develop that relationship, it allows us then to not suppress our emotions or feelings, but to become much more aware of them, like you say, the subtleties to the things that are going on, and work with it, as opposed to just distracting ourselves, medicating ourselves, or watching TV and never wanting to face something and continue to suppress it for another 5 years, because we've been doing that already, and it just feels too great. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've gone way off on a tangent, but this is good stuff. Let's just keep rolling.
Well, I think like what you say there about that we're not the emotions, we're not the body, we're not the mind. And Deepak Chopra says something like, if you can observe your thoughts, you can observe your emotions, you can observe your body, then you aren't those things because there's an observation behind that, right?
Hmm.
So that is the real you, is that observer, right? And so it seems like to me to get to that observer is critical, and not be enmeshed in the meat suit, and learn how to take command of it, as you were mentioning. And so, I mean, back to the list, just getting into that, if you want to. Um, we maybe just we've covered a few of them actually.
Okay.
Um, self-empowering decisions, regular practice, creating connection, detaching from emotions, moving from reaction to observation, meditation, getting into nature. That's a big one.
Mm.
I yeah, really, that's critical for me to move over into nature and not be so confined by the digital world and all that stuff. So
Yeah, no, massive. And it takes me back to just the podcast that I just released this week with Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. And, and you know, it, and you speak about it, there's in nature, there's a harmonious rhythm. There's like a natural order, there's a natural coherence, and our body is energetic and physical, so there's a natural order and coherence within our bodies. But because of the nervous system and the homeostasis and the way we interpret the world, we are creating incoherence. We're creating disorder within our body, and our nervous system can kind of get locked in that place, right?
yeah.
So, which then, of course, puts us in fight or flight, which is then shutting down all the systems of the body because they've been prepared to fight. Now, I know this is a long-winded answer about nature, but it's so important. Like, we even have Bruce Lipton. We got the whole message in the mainstream media right now, right? There is nothing to do about how we can support our stress, how we can support our fear, how we can support our immune system, what we can do to be making better health choices. Nothing. And it all feels disempowering. But when we're willing to get into the root of the stress levels and the fear and start to work with that, for me, nature is so important to do that. Because if you spend enough time in nature, your body will start to find this natural harmony and rhythm and become coherent in with the natural surroundings around you. I think
Mm.
about that. How healing is that on its
Well,
own?
100%. And did you know that the actual nature sounds, like you hear those like relaxing tracks of
Mm,
music, meditative music, it's like the waves crashing or the wind blowing, or like there's actually science to support that, how that impacts your nervous system, and that those natural rhythms of the waves, of the wind, of the movement of trees, of the birds chirping, all these things actually elicit a relaxed response in the nervous system to help you de-stress and open into that rest and digest place, so you're out of the fight or flight and you're dropping into a place where you can repair, you can boost your immunity, you can, all these things that we're striving to do with chemicals and so forth, and distractions, um, are right there at our front door, you know and
yeah.
it's, and even just imagining that, if you just sit in meditation, like you might be, locked in an apartment or somewhere where there's not access to a lot of nature, but just the imagining of nature and pretending within yourself that you're sitting on a beach and hearing those waves crash, and that elicits the same response within your nervous system. It's like, wow, we have this power that we forget about.
Totally. And wouldn't you rather condition the body and wanted to get addicted to that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Be a happy addict instead of a stress addict.
Totally. And that's not to say I'm going in denial and just pretending that what's going on in the outside world is not happening. We are very aware of it. That's why we're doing podcasts like this, and we really feel we greatly contribute in our unique ways so that we can support other people and help people along as well, coming from a place of heart, compassion, and kindness. But I also believe that if you're in a fearful stress response, you're going to be making decisions and actions and seeing the world in a way that you're probably going to regret looking back at from 5 years from now, 10 years from now, because you were in that state at the time. Like, how many decisions have we made in our life, or spontaneous anger from all these places where we look back in hindsight and go, shit, maybe I shouldn't have done it that way, or maybe I shouldn't have done it this way, because that wasn't me at the time. So if we're in this constant place of fear, fight or flight, we're not serving anyone. We're not serving our fellow neighbor. We're not serving our family. We're not serving the people that we care about. So by actually becoming a bit of a happy addict, and like I've got a fort built around, my family, mate. Like emotionally, like it's like I am very conscious of what I mean. Things slip through. Don't get me wrong, and it's like, let's sort this out. But if I am nurturing and looking after that environment and myself, I can then be the best person possible to serve outside of this as well, moving forward, and not getting caught up in I guess the pandemonium and panic of what's going on in that world, and actually try and see it from a clear lens, not from a fear lens. And that's very different place to be. And for me,
Mm,
that's really important. And sadly, we get a narrative that's consistently keeping us in fear. And if we stay in fear, are we actually seeing truth?
yeah. No, I love what you said there, that you either see through a lens of fear or a lens that's clear, right? And you can't have both at the same time.
No,
I think that's important to identify, because that's two things happen when we get into that reactive state. Is that our the prefrontal cortex shuts down, and so your ability to think logically is gone. So you can't think logically when you're in a reactive state. And then the emotion that you're feeling, you can't be fearful, angry, or stressed at the same time as feeling loving, kind, compassion. Like they can't coexist. You gotta switch. And so when I that's like a red flag to me. Whenever I feel myself contracting down in fear, in reaction, then I'm like, whoa, I'm not thinking clearly, and I'm not expressing the emotions that I want to perpetuate in my life, which then impact the decisions and choices, like you said. It's like, so how do I then drop in? And nature, meditation, all these things we're talking about, even the breath, like you've got, what do you have, like 3 or 4 different podcasts
maybe
about
even more now. Yeah.
more in just in breathing. It's like, and this is one of the critical things in meditation and yoga, and you hear it through a lot of the mystical work and stuff, is breath work. And we've just lost the plot when it comes to breathing. And we think, oh yeah, well, we just breathe and it'll breathe deeper and it'll relax you. And it's like there's such a wealth of benefit to the nose breathing, to the slow breathing, to relaxing the nervous system because of that, to health reasons. It goes on and on, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's ringing true with all these things that we're talking about, right? It gives us a sense of empowerment. It
Yeah.
gives us a sense of I am taking control back and command of my life and my sovereign being. Like the thing is that like right now, because everything is so uncertain, if we shoot ahead too far, overwhelm can happen very quickly, very quickly. And then we get the sense of losing control. And from the sense of losing control, it just feeds the anxiety and it feeds the fear. And then we start going, we just get stuck in these cycles that are perpetuating, that continue to keep moving um, that fear cycle forward. But the very things that we are speaking about right now are allowing us to just go, hang on a sec. Whoa, easy, tiger. Let me just stop. And then we're starting to come back to these tools, starting to reconnect to this starting to retrain the nervous system, starting to retrain the body. And over time, we will start to then shift the very lens that we see our reality from. And then what is where the magic starts to happen and is that we then start to not want for the external things to start to fulfill an internal need that was we were looking all along. We've just been looking in the wrong place. Because as we start to feel more fulfilled from the inside out, we stop wanting less from the external and coming from this place of lack or emptiness or striving for something we don't even know what we're striving for, to start to feel fulfilled now, start to feel at more peace now, start to feel happier now. And isn't that a great place to be living from? But we have to have, we got these tools and we've got the ability to start making decisions that serve us here in this moment right now, regardless of what's going on in the outside world.
Yeah, I think that's critical. We tend to live backwards in life in that we look at the external and want the external to change so that we can feel better instead of feeling better. And then from that better feeling within ourselves that we've nurtured and practiced, then we see the world differently and can meet it differently. It's the humming in in shamanic work, it's the hummingbird energy. It's the stillness in motion,
Mm.
right? And so can we become that stillness that we're craving for, that peace, that harmony, that love that we're craving for in the world that is not meeting us there because we haven't met ourselves there.
Yeah.
And then nurture that, and then ultimately that then we will see in the world, and then we will expand upon that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. What points have we got? We still got, I don't know how many we covered, but we still got quite a few left.
I don't know. I think I got sidetracked on the number 6 there with nature, and then we've got community. Like that's like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the community that I have around me.
Mm.
Working with you and Petra, and then having people in my lives that are aware of this kind of work and can keep me accountable. The coaching program that we have, like we obviously facilitate that, but it's beneficial for us to show up on a regular basis and to be immersed in that with everyone else.
Yeah.
And that it's critical. This is, I think, one of the things that's really frustrating to me in all of this is how that mainstream narrative has created this divide and this separation between people, because at the basis of who we are is that need for connection and community, and that it's a natural thing in a stress response. I mean, you see it just all the time, is that you don't see somebody fall and hurt themselves and then be like, oh, I'm just going to leave them there. It's like you innately want to reach out to them, and that's human nature. And so when we see that that's not happening in a crisis like this on a large scale, and it is in ways, obviously, but there's lots of divide
Mm.
that's being perpetuated through our reactions, through the narrative, through whatever. Then that's innately not who we are. We're going against ourselves, and that's creating a inner conflict that is very challenging to resolve. So finding those places where we can nurture that community and that connection with ourselves, our true selves, and others, then actually feeds that innate ability within us to survive. It's a survival mechanism, that reaching out and connecting in community. That's how we survived as a species. We don't have the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws or all that, or we're not the fastest animal, but we can come together and work together to create something greater than a lot of other species can do, and that's how we survive.
Yeah.
So it's critical.
Yeah. It's huge. It's huge. Um, we've got creating space, I mean, we've kind of touched on it, but
I think we have. It's
it,
just the unpacking, the stopping, the pausing. Hey.
yeah, yeah. If we don't have time to just be or start to witness who we're being, how do we ever expect to change any of it?
Mm.
You know. And space is nurturing.
Yeah, nurturing and care and kindness kind of just all fell out together. Oh,
Oh,
I'm not here. Sorry. I think all those last three, nurturing yourself, taking, doing the things that you need to do to find that stillness, that peace, that ability to rest. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot that's going on that requires downtime, requires time for integration, introspection. Um, it's no accident that we sleep for a third of our lives. It's required to be healthy is rest and recuperation,
mm,
and that's where all the actual growth happens. Is we get pushed and we stress the system and we go beyond our comfort zone, but then we've got to drop in and let it integrate, let it digest before we then push on.
yeah,
Critical.
totally. We got. I'll leave number 12 to last, but I'm going to put number 13 and 12, which is we got diet question mark written there as well.
Well, why the question mark? Because people
It's
people hear the word diet and they're like, "Oh, I should just cut back on the carbs," right?
cut back on the calories. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's such
it
such
is.
a gap here, isn't
Oh,
there?
it's
And
massive, and it's such a volatile topic. It's as volatile as some of the other topics that have been talked about out there at the moment. We
yeah,
you know we defend the right, and it's just interesting. I just want to touch on this because working in the health and fitness industry for a long time, I
mm,
had the blessing to work with thousands of people, literally over a 7 8 year period. I'd be seeing people every day that are coming in, and every single person had their opinion on food and what's healthy. Like you could stop anyone on the street. Everyone's got an opinion. Well, they say opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, right? So, so we all formulate beliefs around a topic, and food is the same. Now, I had Bruce Lipton on the show not long ago, talking about the state of the world right now, and the virus, and how we've been living with viruses for since since the turn of time. But the difficulty we're having is that we're actually creating a society that is not nurturing this. We are disconnected from our food chain. We are disconnected from food. And I guess one of the simple things that I think about in a pandemic is, surely I want to support my immune system, so surely I want to be making lifestyle choices that are actually going to start to nurture, care, and feed myself like I love myself, and have that healthy respect for my body. And going back to all the thousands of people I saw, everyone used to tell me they ate healthy, mate. 9 out of 10
yeah,
people, yeah, no, I eat pretty good. And then the moment we go, well, can we just do a food diary? Let's tell me what you've ate over the last 24 hours. And they'd be like, oh. And then the moment they started to get it out of the story and put down that, oh, well, actually, I slipped up yesterday, but it's not, and it's, well, let's do the next week. And the majority of people wouldn't keep the food diary because they didn't want to accept. So the story in their mind to the harsh reality, it's like doing your books in accounting, right?
yeah.
you know with the credit card, it's like, no, I don't spend it on nothing. What do you want about? And then you look at your bank statement at the end of the month and you go, Jesus Christ, what have I blown it on? you know so the point being is that there are so many things we could do in food wise, and this is not I'm not telling anyone what they should eat. But what I do, one of the simplest things when people used to ask me was like, well, just think about removing all the processed foods. Imagine what your great grandparents used to eat when they used to have an allotment in the backyard. They used to grow their veggies. They would go to the local farmers markets to pick up things. Like, what were the things you'd be buying and eating then? you know
Yeah.
that's a great place to start. So we got that one. You want to add
Yeah, yeah.
anything to that, or is this some?
I don't know. I didn't know how far you were going to take that one. That could be a whole like hour in itself. Uh,
Yeah,
because yeah, we have strayed so far from what is actually healthy, and if you're not, what the podcast you had recently is the gut health. What was that guy's name? You just put that blurb up.
oh, the Jeffrey Rediger one.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
it? Yeah, yeah,
Talking about the biodome. Oh,
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
critical, critical.
yeah.
But yeah. Um, so why did you save acceptance for last?
Well, it kind of, for me, it leans into our four pillars from our coaching model,
Yeah,
which is awareness, acceptance, intention, and inspired action. And we that framework for us, and of course, we break those pillars down that go deeper in each pillar.
yeah,
But for me, they are critical components to creating any long term change in our lives, but more importantly as well, creating harmony, inner peace within our life and coming from that place. And from that inner peace and from those four pillars and models, it allows us to then start to tune into the subtleties, to start to to expand beyond just what from the analytical thinking mind to then start to reconnect at a deeper level all the way back to source energy that we talk about as well, which we touched upon at the beginning. And yeah, so acceptance was one of them, but there are four of the pillars. I don't know if you want to talk to those, what I've just said, just to wrap this
yeah.
podcast
No,
up.
I just, as you were talking, was just thinking in my mind about those four pillars and how they are important, and how we can share it without dropping into a 4 week or a 12 week coaching program. um, and that, it's simple. Is that, the first pillar is awareness. And I think if you just ask yourself, am I bringing more awareness in my life right now? All through the day, just ask yourself that. Is this bringing more awareness, what I'm doing right now? And it's not awareness of like the latest breaking news story. That's not the awareness we're talking about. We're talking about, the inner awareness, what's going on inside of me, the truth to me, awareness of my intuition, my inner self. Is this bringing me more awareness? That's a simple question you can ask yourself, and that will start to change the dialogue within you. And then once you have that awareness, it's moving into that acceptance, which is the second quadrant. And it's then accepting, surrendering, having gratitude for, and forgiveness of the things that are actually going on inside of you. And if you can do that, you're ahead of the game. Awareness and acceptance, those two pillars right there, you're already beating the chaos that's outside of you, because you've found a peace with those two things. And then it's once you get a foundation on those two things, then it's an intention. Am I then focusing myself in a direction that I want to be moving in my life? Or am I allowing the world around me to push me in a direction that I don't want to go? And intention is so critical then to start to nurture in a new version of yourself, a more authentic version of yourself. And then the final component, once you've got those three, is inspired action. And this, just think that word inspired. Am I taking inspired action? Am I doing things that inspire me today, or am I just surviving? Because those actions, we tend to get so busy, we're so good at doing things, which becomes a distraction and a lack of awareness, instead of, am I coming from my heart and taking action
Mm.
in my life on things that are meaningful and heartfelt to me? And if we all did those four things, we wouldn't be met with the same problems. They would be there, but we would meet them differently, and we move through them much more quickly. And I think that's the important thing to address. It's like the world's not going to change because, like, it's going to be different because you're different, but it's not going to be different in itself. It's how you meet it that's going to be different. How we meet it as a humanity that's going to be different. That's going to make the change. That's going to allow us to evolve, which is what I feel this is calling forward: is an evolution, is a growth, is a shift in our direction as humanity, that from stopping to do the things that aren't serving us so much, that will not take us to the evolution that we're striving to create here. And this is the Mack truck. As a humanity, we've had the feather, right? We've had the feather, and
Mm.
we haven't paid attention, and so now we've got the Mack truck. And so are we going to actually take responsibility and come together in a loving, accepting, kind way to move through this together? Or are we going to fight each other and just call it a day?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the choice, isn't it?
Totally. Totally. I think also that's an amazing place to end this podcast. There's two things I want to mention before we wrap it up. The first one is that if you did get a lot out of this podcast and you think, wow, that's some great shit to ponder on, you guys are just like rock stars. Just kidding. But if genuinely, if you enjoyed it, please send this to a loved one or a friend, or share it with someone that you think will get out of this, get something out of this too. That helps us continue to get the word out there. The second thing is that this will be live early next week, which will be, I think, early September. So we are actually running a 12-week interactive program where you get to catch up with myself, Matt, and Petra every week for 12 weeks. And we'll be guiding you through our whole coaching model to really embody and empower this work. So if you want to be part of that community and part of something, it is interactive. It is by application only. But we are very excited. We've got an amazing group of people already joined up, and there'll be a few more spots there. So if you're listening to this and it's before the 20th of September, and you want to find out more, then just email us back at livingflow.co. Just come over to our website as well. And is there anything you want to add, Matt, to finish as we wrap up this?
Just as you were talking, I would love to hear what everyone else is doing out there. You know, if you're listening to this and it's inspired something new, or you have other things that are like helping you create harmony and balance through all this, and let us know. I'd love to know. I'm always open for learning new things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. I couldn't chop a Matt up here for the emergency podcast, but
yeah. Next year, mate.
Next year we'll take the chopper, mate. That's all right.
Yeah.
No, thanks, legend.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks, everyone.